Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, or good afternoon, or good morning, whenever you're watching this. It's I, the Marvelous Iggy, back with another Ramble video. This time, focusing on the JRPG that is taking the world by storm. That is Octopath Traveler. This is a game that I was very hyped for when it was first announced and shown off at that Nintendo Switch event in January of 2017. Yeah, 2017. Because it looked like the natural evolution of what sprite of like SNES era sprites would look like. It's such a very unique visual that nothing, and I mean nothing, on the current games shelves looks like this. And as the time has gone on, we've known information, and instead of it being one cohesive story, we get 8 individual stories, and that's where I want to kind of start off, and where I sort of felt conflicted about this game. Having played JRPGs most of my life, I'm accustomed to the typical, you play as the main character first, and then as you progress, you get other people who have very different ideologies and goals, but you're band together to fight the evil empire or defeat the evil god, or the empire try to resurrect the evil god, or something to that degree. Octopath really doesn't do that. Octopath, instead of focusing on a big overall narrative, at least at the beginning, this could change, I don't know, I'm only 30 hours in, Octopath gives you 8 individual stories with no connectivity, and as far as I can tell, there's no interweaving of it, and I'm kind of okay with it, and I'm kind of not okay with it. I'm okay with it because it means that we get because sometimes when you play these JRPGs, certain characters can fall to the wayside because maybe they don't get a side quest, and maybe their side quest is kind of weak because it's really short and it's maybe like a fetch quest. Versus here, each character has their own distinct motivations, their own purposes for what they're doing in life, and because whenever you pick a certain progress their chapter, you're focusing only on them, so you're not bogged down by the whole party or what the party thinks of this. At least within the overall narrative, there are party moments that you can get by having the certain people in the right, by having certain characters in, but you don't. There's no connecting narrative, and well, even though I'm okay with there no being sort of overarching sort of theme or any kind, I wish there was some kind of interconnectivity, because one of the better parts of Final Fantasy VI is, when the characters all meet together for the first time, when you fight Kefka for the first time, and you basically have your "We Are the Avengers" moment, or the kind of thing. Versus here, you get a character meet chapter 1, it's like, oh, you want to help me do this thing? Okay, we're on, and that would be fine, except when you get the personal character moments in certain villages, they act like they've been on this journey together this entire time, and all I really would want, like in an update, or maybe I would actually pay for it, like a DLC option or something, to where you have, like, there's a small little like mini chapter interlude that show like all these characters come together to this one town, and some shit happens, and it's like a little mini dungeon, and they talk about, well, we're gonna help each other, and they have your Avengers moment. That to me is what this game is missing in this story, in terms of the characters coming together. With that being said, I do appreciate the actual stories in here, because they're not typical JRPG schlock where, again, what I've already stated, but rather the stories that are being told here are much more complex, they're much deeper than I thought they would be, and they're much more mature. There's still elements of fantastic, and there's still giant monsters to fight, but it gets pretty dark in some of these stories, and I've only done 2 of them, and I'm just scared to see what I'm gonna find next. So that's what keeps me motivated playing. The other thing that keeps me motivated playing is the combat system, which you just saw right now. It's a classic JRPG, turn-based. If you really like Bravely Default, you're gonna like this, because you have the Brave system that's back, where you can boost up your attack points, and trust every time you break an opponent is so satisfying. But the thing about this game in terms of combat is that it doesn't want you to rush. Maybe in overworld battles, when you know weaknesses and you can just oversail certain character oversell just like random enemies, you can just bull rush them. But when it comes to bosses, you really have to plan out your strategy to a degree, and understand their weaknesses, understand their patterns, understand who to attack, when to break, when not to break. It's really fun that way. The only thing that's really fun. The only thing I really wish this game did, in comparison to Bravely Default, is make it as accessible as Bravely Default. Because this game, as cool, as visually appealing as it looks, as beautiful as the music is, this game's hard. This game will kick your ass if you're not ready. If you're not a person who's been playing, I would say not say RPGs all your life, but if you're not a typical RPG player. The beautiful thing about Bravely Default was that you could lower difficulty. So if you just wanted to play the story, you didn't want to deal with the schlock, you didn't want to deal with any of that, you just wanted to play the story. And I thought Bravely Default story was pretty good. You could just put on easy and just cruise, and that's fine. That's perfectly fine. The game doesn't hurt you by giving you a stupid cheesy ending like it would back in the 90s. And you can also lower encounter rates. And yes, I know there's an ability you can get from, I believe it's the cleric, not the cleric. The mage he's Cyrus. That you can lower encounter rates, but in Bravely Default you can just do that by a menu toggle. I feel like I really wish that would have been in here, where you can just like, well, I don't want. You can either lower it till you're not getting any encounters, or say if you want to grind, which I did a lot in Bravely Default, you can turn the encounter rate up super high, so you're not just wandering around aimlessly waiting for an encounter to happen. I feel like there's a lot more lifetime stuff they could have done, but the stuff that's here is nice. Checkpoints are pretty frequent. Autosaving is really, really great. I just wish there was a little bit more of that stuff that carried over for Bravely Default. Just a little bit. But what honestly has me singing and has me wanting to play this game more, besides the riveting gameplay and the compelling stories, is the music. And whoever made this music, you're a god. Like, most typical Final Fantasy games, I'm mostly talking about Final Fantasy and Square stuff just because this was made by them, have a certain feel to it where, like, oh, okay, I'm playing a Square game. Versus this doesn't really have that, and I like it for that. It feels more like it's just trying to be a score for a fantasy film. It feels very, and I could be wrong, but to me it feels ripped right out from Howard Shore's score of Lord of the Rings. You know, moments of bellowing horns, of soft flutes. It feels very Western, if to anything. It doesn't sound like something you would hear from Final Fantasy VI. At least to me, it doesn't. But the score is amazing. I really wish I bought the collector's edition just to have the CD, because it's so peaceful. Like, you're listening to this is Obrecht starting town, and it's so peaceful. And then now we're going to the Cobblestone Gap, where, like, I love how, to me, like, you could put this theme in the place of the where you go to, where in the Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers, the Helm's Deep. You could put this here and it would fit perfectly. The only other issue I have with this game is that side quests can be very vague. Like, I mean, very vague. And you have to. Some of them are pretty easy. Some of them are like, well, give me this thing, or one of them is literally, help, I'm in prison, and that's it. You have like, it's a little weird. But also, side quests don't give you EXP, and they give you money, which is fine because money's kind of a thing you need to get early on. At least I feel like. But it weirds me out that you don't get EXP from. Or even job points from side quests. It's a little weird. It's a little weird. I'm gonna do them all. I plan to do them all. At least I know all side quests, but I plan to do most of them. But let's see what else. There's not really much else to say. Oh my god, I'm sorry. I love this theme. This is the desert region. I guess this would be considered Primrose's theme, and she's my favorite character. I love her story so far. But if you're asking me as a person who's played JRPGs most of his life, who has pretty much played all the big ones with the exception of like Tales of Symphonia, I think you should. I think if you have a vested interest in them, yeah, you do. you should pick this game up. It's a beautiful masterwork. It's a beautiful masterpiece of game development. It's a love letter to classic SNES JRPG, SNES early play. Well, I wouldn't say early PlayStation, but definitely ode to classic SNES JRPG era. Lord knows, I would love it if Square would remake Final Fantasy VI with this engine. I would so love it. I think it would be really, really cool. Shit, remake the first 6 Final Fantasies with all this and release them as like an Ultimate Collection pack. I would so shell out $100 or whatever they would charge for it. Just don't include the after years. I don't know what else more to say about this. Other than that, I'm really happy though that despite my sort of minor criticisms, again, it's a minor criticism, I believe, about the lack of interconnectivity, this game is amazing. And I'm really happy that, like, not only has Japan, like, you know, adopted it, like, apparently it's constantly sold out in Japan, which is crazy, because when was the last time you heard a new IP in Japan, like, selling out, like, where they, like, Square has actually had to apologize that they didn't have the game, and I think that's pretty cool. The enemies are I guess I should check out the enemies. The enemies are pretty cool. It is a little weird how the boss fights, like, for whatever reason, they're like 6 foot tall, and there was a great meme on Twitter where it's like 5'11" versus 6 feet, and I thought that was great. I don't know who the original Twitter was like that. You probably can't find it anymore because of how Twitter works. Because I'll show you a tweet that was literally from a minute ago, in case you missed it. But I think the enemy design is pretty good. I think the boss fights are pretty well done. Primrose is broken as fuck. Go check out Sky Williams' tweets if you want to see how broken Primrose is. Oh yeah, the job system. I didn't even talk about that. Job system is great. I haven't really gotten too much into it, but that's one of the things I like about this game more so than Bravely Default. The job system is much easier to master. The job system. So instead of saying by level 1 you get heal, level 2 you get Insuna or whatever, every time you gain more job points, you have the choice to choose which ability you want, and you can choose any one in order. So you can go with Holy, or you can go with Heal. I'm sorry, I picked Ophelia first, so that's who I'm gonna reference. And you combine that when you can actually have characters earn second jobs, so you can experiment. You can have characters have 2 jobs at once, so you can have, you know, classic job system. You can have, for instance, Primrose. You can have her be a merchant, or her be a knight. And apparently there's hidden jobs. I haven't found any of them yet. But the game does a pretty good job of at least putting out the jobs that you do have, which I think is pretty cool. Well, like the core 8 jobs, they do a pretty good job on the map telling you, hey, dumbass, go over here. Go get that job, and, you know, attaching it to who you want. And it's interchangeable. So even though right now I currently have, I believe Primrose, I gave her the cleric ability. I could then remove that cleric ability and give her another job to have her learn those skills. And the more you level up job skills, you learn passive skills, which can have both some can have effects on the battlefield, some can have effects on the overworld, and you can constantly interchange them, giving you more customizability. And that's another thing. That's a really good point. Is that this game is really customizable when it comes to the characters, and maybe not clothing, but definitely in terms of ability, weapons, how you want to play. It allows you. I feel like the game is designed to play how you want to play. It's really beautiful. But I think I've rambled enough. I know this wasn't as long as Celeste, but needless to say, I love this game. It's really fun. I can overlook its shortcomings in my eyes. Some people may not see it as a criticism. I do. I'm looking forward to playing more. I'm really happy that it's doing really, really well. And let me know who you in the comments below. Let me know who you started with. No spoilers, please. And let me know what do you think of the game so far. What's your favorite character story so far? Mine's is Primrose, but then again, I haven't done the other 6. I've done Alphen's and Primrose's chapter 2 so far. What are your favorites? Please, you can follow me at twitter.com/marvelousiggy, and check out the description below for everything else. And I'm gonna let you with Sawarki, I think that's the town's name. This beautiful melody, this beautiful flute. I'm gonna leave you with this. And thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And remember, guys, stay marvelous. Have a good night, everybody.